Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. Emma Caldwell, 32, cursed the Chicago snowstorm as she pulled her coat tighter around her body. Her pitch meeting with a potential client had run late, and now O'Hare Airport had canceled all flights, leaving her stranded in a city where she knew no one. Her marketing agency back in New York needed this client to survive another quarter, but the meeting had ended with polite smiles and vague promises to be in touch. The lobby of the Crimson, Chicago's most exclusive hotel, offered temporary sanctuary from the blizzard. Emma knew she couldn't afford even the cheapest room, but the warmth was worth pretending she belonged there for a few minutes. "Miss, can I help you?" asked the concierge, his eyes taking in her expensive but well-worn coat, a relic from better financial days. "Just waiting for the storm to ease before finding more affordable accommodation," she admitted, dignity intact despite the embarrassment burning her cheeks. "I'm afraid all hotels within 20 miles are booked due to the convention and storm," he replied with practiced sympathy. A deep voice behind her sent unexpected heat down her spine. "Give her the penthouse suite adjoining mine." Emma turned to face the owner of that voice and felt time slow around her. The man stood tall and confident in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that emphasized broad shoulders and a lean physique. His amber eyes held hers with unexpected intensity beneath dark brows. She recognized him instantly from magazine covers and business profiles. Liam Navarro, 38, tech billionaire and founder of Novosphere Technologies. "I don't need charity, Mr. Navarro," Emma said, lifting her chin. His lips curved into a smile that transformed his serious face into something dangerously appealing. "It's not charity. I've been looking for a distraction from a tedious evening of business calls. You look like far better company." Something about his direct gaze made Emma feel both seen and desired in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Against her better judgment, she found herself following him to the private elevator. "You know my name, but I don't know yours," he said as the elevator ascended. "Emma Caldwell. I own Prism Edge Marketing in New York." His eyebrows rose slightly. "The agency that pitched to my acquisition Clearview Tech this afternoon?" Emma's heart sank. Of course, his company owned the business she'd failed to impress today. "Small world," she managed. "Interesting coincidence," he corrected, his eyes never leaving her face. The penthouse suite was larger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the blizzard transforming Chicago into a snow globe, city lights glimmering through the white. "Would you like a drink?" Liam asked, loosening his tie in a gesture that drew her attention to the strong column of his neck. Over expensive whiskey, they talked. Not about business or her failed pitch, but about art, travel, and childhood dreams. Emma found herself laughing, genuinely for the first time in months, as financial worries temporarily receded. When Liam spoke about growing up as the son of immigrants who pushed him relentlessly toward success, she glimpsed vulnerability beneath his powerful exterior. "My mother raised me to believe I could own the world," Emma confided when he asked about her background. She never mentioned how expensive the world would be to maintain. His laugh was rich and warm. "Is that why you started your own agency instead of working for someone else?" "Freedom has always been non-negotiable for me," she admitted, "even when it comes with sleepless nights and an emptying bank account." Something shifted in his expression then, interest deepening into something more calculating. "How empty is that bank account exactly?" The question should have offended her, but the genuine curiosity in his eyes made her answer honestly. 3 months from bankruptcy, maybe less. The innovation is there, but capital..." He nodded slowly, then surprised her by changing the subject. They talked late into the night, the space between them on the couch gradually diminishing until her knee occasionally brushed his thigh, sending inexplicable shivers through her body. Around midnight, she reluctantly stood to retire to her adjoining suite. At her door, Liam leaned against the frame, studying her face with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Have breakfast with me tomorrow," he said. It wasn't quite a question. I should try to get back to New York, but even as she protested, Emma knew she would say yes. "The storm won't clear until afternoon." 9 o'clock, in my suite. His fingers brushed hers as he handed her the keycard. the brief contact burning like a brand against her skin. Emma slept restlessly, dreams filled with amber eyes and possibilities she couldn't afford to consider. At precisely 9 the next morning, she knocked on the connecting door. Liam opened it immediately, dressed casually in a black sweater that clung to his muscular frame. The intimate setting of a breakfast table for two by the windows made this feel dangerously like more than a business meeting. After they'd eaten, Liam fixed those penetrating eyes on her again. "I have a proposition for you, Emma, regarding something much more personal." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I need an heir." Emma nearly choked on her coffee. "Excuse me?" "I have a hereditary heart condition, nothing immediately life-threatening, but it complicates my future. I've built an empire with no one to leave it to, and traditional family relationships have proven challenging with my lifestyle." "And this concerns me how exactly?" Emma asked, pulse racing with confusion and something else she refused to name. Liam leaned forward, his gaze never wavering. "Give me a baby and I'll save your business." The world seemed to tilt beneath her. "That's insane. Is it? You need capital. I need a child with a mother whose intelligence and drive I respect. Our arrangement could be mutually beneficial. You can't be serious. I'm offering $10 million, 0 cents invested in your agency, plus all medical expenses covered and generous child support. Naturally, you would have co-parenting rights, but the child would primarily reside with me after the age of 5. Emma stood abruptly. "I'm not a broodmare for sale, Mr. Navarro." He rose as well, stepping closer until she could smell his cologne, something woodsy and expensive that made her heartbeat accelerate. "I'm not looking to buy you, Emma. I'm proposing a partnership that solves problems for both of us. This is absolutely ridiculous." Yet she couldn't bring herself to walk away. "Think about it," he urged, suddenly close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "What would you sacrifice for your company's survival? For the dream you've built?" Before she could answer, his hand cupped her cheek with unexpected gentleness. The touch sent electricity coursing through her veins. Then, as if he couldn't help himself, Liam leaned down and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was meant to be brief, perhaps even businesslike, but the moment their lips met, something ignited between them. His mouth was warm and tasted faintly of coffee, and when his arms circled her waist to pull her closer, Emma found herself responding with an intensity that shocked her. The kiss deepened, his tongue teasing the seam of her lips until she opened for him with a soft gasp. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Liam looked as stunned as she felt. His eyes darkened with desire he couldn't hide. "Consider my offer," he whispered, his breath warm against her still tingling lips. "I'll be in New York next week, and expect your answer then." As Emma gathered her belongings to leave, the ghost of his kiss still burning on her mouth, she knew with terrifying certainty that her life had irrevocably changed in the space of a single snowstorm. What frightened her most wasn't his outrageous proposal, it was how desperately she wanted to accept it. Chapter 2. Impossible to resist. For 7 days, Emma couldn't escape thoughts of Liam Navarro. His proposition haunted her waking hours, and his kiss invaded her dreams. She'd returned to her New York apartment, determined to forget both, yet found herself researching his condition. Long QT syndrome. Hereditary but manageable with the right medical care, still potentially life-threatening. She told herself it was simple curiosity, not concern. Her resolve to refuse his outrageous offer strengthened when she entered her small but stylish office in Soho. This was her creation, her dream. She'd built Prism Marketing from nothing but ambition and innovative ideas. The thought of it disappearing made her physically ill. Another rejection letter. Sophia, 25, her assistant and last remaining full-time employee, placed the envelope on her desk, alongside the stack of unpaid invoices. The final blow came that afternoon when her largest client called to terminate their contract, citing budget cuts. Emma stared at the spreadsheet on her computer, the numbers blurring as she calculated how long before she would have to close the doors permanently. 3 weeks, perhaps 4. Not the 3 months she'd confidently told Liam. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "Lunch tomorrow. I'm in town earlier than expected. LN." Emma's fingers hovered over the screen. She should refuse. She should delete the message and forget him. Instead, she typed, When and where? His response came instantly. Le Bernardin, 12:30, car will collect you at noon. The Bentley arrived precisely at noon the next day. Emma had spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing euthanasia outfit, settling on a form-fitting emerald dress that complemented her dark skin and showcased the curves she normally downplayed in business settings. She told herself it was armor, not enticement. Le Bernardin's maitre d' led her to a private dining room, where Liam waited alone, tall and imposing in a navy suit that made his amber eyes appear even more striking. When those eyes traveled slowly from her face down the length of her body, Emma felt the heat of his gaze like a physical caress. "You look beautiful," he said, simply, pulling out her chair. "This isn't a date," she reminded him, ignoring the flutter in her stomach when their fingers brushed as he helped her into her seat. His smile held wicked promise. Of course not, just a business discussion, yet the meal felt remarkably like a date. Liam ordered for them both, normally something Emma would resent, but he'd somehow selected exactly what she would have chosen herself. The conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on art, philosophy, and current events. Not once did he mention his proposition, though it hung between them like an invisible thread connecting their every interaction. Only after dessert did Liam lean forward, his expression turning serious. "Have you considered my offer?" Emma took a sip of wine to steady herself. "It's completely inappropriate. Yet you're here," he noted, his voice low and intimate in a way that made her skin tingle. "To refuse in person?" Liam's eyes narrowed slightly. "How close is your agency to failing, Emma? The truth this time." The question stung with its accuracy. 4 weeks, maybe less, since I lost Anderson Media yesterday." He nodded, unsurprised. "I made some inquiries. Your work is exceptional but undercapitalized, a common death knell for creative agencies. You checked up on me." She should be outraged, but beneath the indignation was a flicker of something else, the realization that he'd taken enough interest to investigate thoroughly. "I research all my potential partnerships." His choice of the last word carried implications that heated her blood. "Shall we discuss this somewhere more private?" An hour later, Emma found herself in Liam's penthouse overlooking Central Park. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the Manhattan skyline, bathed in afternoon sunlight. But she barely noticed the spectacular view. All her attention was captured by the document Liam slid across the glass coffee table, a contract. She raised an eyebrow. "I find clarity beneficial in all relationships," he replied. $10 million invested in your agency. Co-parenting rights with primary custody transitioning to me when the child reaches school age. Generous ongoing support, and in exchange, you carry my child." The words felt surreal leaving her lips. "Through artificial insemination?" "Yes, no sexual obligation," he clarified, though the heat in his eyes when he looked at her suggested he wasn't averse to the alternative. Emma scanned the document, her business mind engaging despite her ethical qualms. The terms were extraordinarily generous. Her company would not only survive but thrive with this investment. Her child would want for nothing. "Why me?" she asked suddenly, looking up to find him watching her intently. "You could have any woman, someone from your social circle, someone without the complications of a struggling business." Liam moved to sit beside her on the sofa, close enough that his thigh pressed against hers. "I need someone brilliant, driven, and healthy. Someone who understands ambition but values integrity. Someone beautiful enough that I find myself thinking about her when I should be focused on billion-dollar acquisitions." His honesty stole her breath. Before she could respond, his hand covered hers on the contract. "I don't expect an answer today. Take the contract home. Review it with your lawyer." His palm was warm against her skin, the contact sending ripples of awareness through her body. Emma knew she should pull away, but found herself frozen as Liam's fingers traced delicate patterns across her wrist. "However," he continued, his voice dropping to a register that seemed to vibrate through her, "I would like to know if there's potential for chemistry between us, for the sake of thoroughness." Emma's heart pounded against her ribs. "I thought artificial insemination made that irrelevant. Perhaps we could explore alternatives." His eyes dropped to her lips. She should stand up. She should leave with the contract and her dignity intact. Instead, Emma heard herself ask, "How would you determine compatibility?" Liam's smile was slow and dangerous before he leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "I'd start here," he whispered, pressing his lips to the sensitive spot just below her earlobe. The gentle contact sent shock waves racing along her nerve endings. Then perhaps here. His mouth traveled down the column of her throat, each kiss melting her resistance further. When his lips finally found hers, Emma was already trembling. Unlike their first kiss, this one began gently, an exploration rather than an explosion. His hands cradled her face with surprising tenderness, thumb stroking her cheekbones as his mouth moved over hers with delicious precision. Emma's hands found their way to his chest, intending to push him away, but instead clutching the expensive fabric of his suit as the kiss deepened. When his tongue swept into her mouth, she couldn't contain a soft moan that seemed to inflame him. Liam's arms encircled her waist, pulling her closer until she was practically in his lap, the contract forgotten on the floor. His kisses became more demanding, one hand tangling in her hair while the other slid down to the small of her back, pressing her against him. Emma felt herself responding with an intensity that shocked her, her body arching into his touch as if they'd been lovers for years instead of adversaries for days. When Liam's lips traveled down her neck again, finding the sensitive hollow of her throat, Emma finally summoned the willpower to pull back, breathing heavily. "I think compatibility has been established," she managed, her voice embarrassingly breathless. Liam looked equally affected, his perfect composure ruffled. For the first time since she'd met him, his eyes had darkened to the color of whiskey, and his breathing was as uneven as hers. "Thoroughly," he agreed, making no move to increase the slight distance she'd created between them. "Does that influence your consideration of my proposal?" The sheer heat of his body called to her like a siren song, but Emma forced herself to stand on unsteady legs. She retrieved the contract from the floor, using the moment to compose herself. "I'll let you know my decision next week," she said, smoothing her dress with hands that still trembled from his touch. "After my lawyer reviews the terms." Liam stood as well, adjusting his tie in a gesture that shouldn't have been so devastatingly attractive. "I'll wait for your call." He walked her to the door, maintaining a careful distance now, as if he didn't trust himself to touch her again. At the threshold, he surprised her by lifting her hand and pressing a kiss to her palm, an oddly intimate gesture that felt more revealing than their passionate embrace. "Consider carefully, Emma," he murmured against her skin, his eyes holding hers with naked intensity. "Some more opportunities come only once in a lifetime." As the elevator descended to the lobby, Emma pressed her palm to her chest, her skin still burning where his lips had been. The contract in her purse felt heavier than its physical weight, laden with implications and possibilities that terrified and thrilled her equally. She had decisions to make about her business, her body, and the impossible-to-ignore electricity Liam Navarro ignited with just a glance. Yet, even as she stepped into the New York afternoon, Emma knew her decision had been made the moment his lips claimed hers in that Chicago hotel room. Some forces were simply impossible to resist, and the pull between them was undeniable. Chapter 3. Falling Without Permission. "You can't seriously be considering this." Mia, 29, Emma's best friend since college, stared at her in disbelief across the small table of their favorite Brooklyn cafe. Emma twisted her coffee cup between her palms. "My lawyer says the contract is ironclad. More than fair, actually." "Fair?" "Emma, he's asking you to have his baby. This isn't a business merger." But wasn't it exactly that? A merging of assets, her womb for his wealth? The thought should have disgusted her. Instead, Emma found herself remembering the heat of Liam's mouth against hers, the gentle strength in his hands. "I have 9 employees who will lose their jobs if I close," Emma said finally, "and the work we do matters. With proper funding, we could transform how minority-owned businesses market themselves." Mia reached across the table to grip her hand. "And the baby? What about when you start to feel something for your child? When you have to share custody with a man who sees children as business assets?" Emma had asked herself the same question 100 times in the weeks since her meeting with Liam. Each time, his words echoed in her mind. "I need someone brilliant, driven, and healthy. Not some faceless surrogate, but her specifically. That had to mean something." "I think there's more to him than that," she admitted quietly. Mia's eyes widened. "Oh, God, you already have feelings for him?" "No, it's just complicated." But later that night, alone in her apartment, Emma acknowledged the truth as she signed her name to the contract. This wasn't just about saving her company. Something about Liam Navarro had gotten under her skin, into her blood, something that made her tremble at the thought of creating a child with him, even through the clinical distance of artificial insemination. 3 days later, she sat across from him in the office of one of Manhattan's most exclusive fertility specialists, listening to the doctor explain the procedure and timeline. Liam had insisted on the best medical care money could buy, regardless of the method they chose. "We'll need to run some tests before proceeding," the doctor explained. "Genetic compatibility, fertility assessments, standard procedure." Liam nodded, his expression betraying nothing, though Emma noticed his fingers tapping rhythmically against his thigh. A rare sign of tension from the normally composed billionaire. When the doctor left them alone to prepare for initial blood work, silence descended. Emma stared at the glossy pamphlets in her lap rather than meeting Liam's intense gaze. "Are you having second thoughts?" he asked finally. "No," she answered truthfully. "But it's becoming real." Liam leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "I've reserved my home in the Hamptons this weekend before we proceed with medical interventions. I thought perhaps we should spend some time together, get to know each other beyond contracts and medical procedures." "A weekend?" Emma raised an eyebrow. "That seems unnecessarily domestic for a business arrangement." His lips curved in that dangerous half-smile that made her pulse jump. "We're creating a child together, Emma. Some degree of familiarity seems appropriate." The word familiarity carried implications that heated her blood. "Just conversation," he clarified, though something in his eyes suggested he wouldn't be opposed to more. "We should at least know each other's favorite books before becoming parents together, don't you think?" Against her better judgment, Emma found herself agreeing. The Hamptons estate surprised her. She'd expected ostentatious wealth, and certainly the property's oceanfront location and sprawling grounds spoke of millions. But the house itself was unexpectedly intimate, with warm woods and comfortable furnishings that invited relaxation. "Not what you expected?" Liam asked, noticing her expression as he showed her to a guest suite larger than her entire apartment. "I thought billionaires preferred cold, minimalist showplaces," she admitted. His laugh was warm and genuine. "I spend enough time in sterile corporate environments. My homes are for living." That evening they dined on the terrace overlooking the Atlantic, the air carrying just enough chill to justify the outdoor fireplace that cast golden light across their faces. Liam had cooked himself. Another surprise that humanized the titan of industry she thought she knew. "My mother insisted all her children learn to cook," he explained, refilling her wineglass. "She said, 'No woman would tolerate a useless husband.'" "And did you have many serious relationships?" Emma asked, surprising herself with the personal question. Something flickered in his eyes, an old pain quickly masked. "One engagement years ago. She found my work schedule incompatible with her social aspirations." The vulnerability in his admission touched something in Emma. "My last serious boyfriend couldn't handle that I prioritized my business over planning our future together." "Their loss," Liam said softly, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "Some people fear ambition in those they love." The phrase hung between them, neither acknowledging how far it strayed from their contractual arrangement. Later they moved to the living room where a fire crackled in the hearth. Liam poured them each a glass of cognac, the expensive liquor warming Emma from the inside as they claimed opposite ends of the plush sofa. "Favorite book?" he asked, echoing his earlier comment. "Their eyes were watching God," she answered without hesitation. "Yours?" 100 Years of Solitude." His smile held a hint of melancholy. "My father read it to me in Spanish when I was too young to truly understand it." "You're close to your family?" Emma curled her legs beneath her, cradling her snifter between her palms. "My parents died 10 years ago. Car accident." His voice remained even, but his eyes darkened with remembered grief. "My sister lives in Madrid with her husband. We speak weekly but see each other rarely." "I'm sorry about your parents," Emma said softly. "My father left when I was 3. It's always been just my mother and me." And she raised a remarkable woman. The simple compliment, delivered without flattery, warmed her more than the cognac. As the night deepened, they moved from books to childhood memories, from professional challenges to personal philosophies. Emma found herself laughing at Liam's surprisingly self-deprecating stories of his early business failures and sharing confidences she rarely revealed to anyone. She hadn't realized how they'd gravitated closer until she felt the heat of his thigh against hers. When had the space between them disappeared? The cognac was long finished, the fire burning low, yet neither seemed inclined to end the evening. "Why did you really bring me here?" she asked finally, her voice hushed in the intimate space between them. Liam's hand found hers on the sofa cushion, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "I told myself it was practical. Parents should know each other." He paused, his eyes holding hers with unexpected vulnerability. "But the truth is, I haven't stopped thinking about kissing you since that day in my apartment." Emma's breath caught. She should remind him of their agreement. Clinical, professional, artificial insemination. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "I haven't stopped thinking about it either." The confession hung in the air for one heartbeat, two, before Liam closed the remaining distance between them. This kiss was different from their previous encounters. Neither the surprised passion of their first meeting nor the exploratory heat of his penthouse. This was slower, deeper, a savoring rather than a claiming. His hands cradled her face with exquisite gentleness as his mouth moved over hers, coaxing rather than demanding a response she was already eager to give. Emma's fingers tangled in his hair, drawing him closer as the kiss deepened, his tongue sliding against hers in a rhythm that sent heat pooling low in her abdomen. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing heavily. Liam rested his forehead against hers, eyes closed as if gathering control. "We should stop," he murmured, though his hands still framed her face. "The contract specifies—" "Forget the contract," Emma interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. She drew back just enough to meet his gaze. "Do you want me, Liam? Not just as the mother of your child, but as a woman?" The naked hunger that flashed across his face was answer enough, but his words, spoken in a voice rough with desire, sent shivers down her spine. "From the moment I saw you in that hotel lobby, I've wanted you in ways that have nothing to do with contracts or heirs." Emma stood slowly, her heart pounding against her ribs. She extended her hand to him, a silent invitation. Liam looked at her outstretched fingers for a long moment, then back to her face. "Are you certain? This changes things between us." "Everything changed the moment you kissed me in Chicago," she admitted. "I'm tired of pretending otherwise." His larger hand engulfed hers as he rose, drawing her against him. This time, when his lips found hers, there was no restraint, no hesitation, only hunger too long denied. His arms wrapped around her, lifting her easily as her legs encircled his waist. Without breaking the kiss, he carried her from the living room toward the master suite at the end of the hall. In his bedroom, illuminated only by moonlight streaming through panoramic windows, Liam laid her gently on his bed. He stood looking down at her, his expression a mixture of desire and something deeper, more tender. "We're supposed to create a child through medical science," he said softly, his fingers working the buttons of his shirt. Cold, clinical, efficient. Emma rose to her knees on the bed, reaching for him. "I think we can manage the creation part ourselves," she whispered, replacing his fingers with her own as she continued unbuttoning his shirt. "Though I can't promise cold or clinical." His laugh vibrated beneath her palms as she spread his shirt open, revealing a chest more muscled than his tailored suits suggested. "Efficiency has never been less appealing," he agreed, his voice dropping to a growl as her hands explored the warm skin she'd uncovered. When her fingers trailed down to his belt, Liam caught her wrists gently. "Not yet," he murmured, pressing her back onto the mattress. "I've imagined this too many times to rush." His lips traced a path from her mouth to her jawline, then down the sensitive column of her throat as his fingers slowly lowered the zipper of her dress. Each newly revealed inch of skin received the worship of his mouth, until Emma was trembling beneath him, desire building to an almost unbearable intensity. "You're even more beautiful than I imagined," Liam whispered against her collarbone, as he drew her dress away completely, his eyes darkening as they traveled over her body, clad only in delicate black lingerie. Emma reached for him, suddenly self-conscious under his heated gaze. "Don't look at me like that." "Like what?" His hand traced the curve of her waist with reverent fingers, "Like I'm some priceless artwork you've acquired." She meant it to sound teasing, but vulnerability crept into her voice. Liam's expression softened as he lowered himself beside her, gathering her close. "Not acquired," he corrected, pressing a kiss to her forehead with unexpected tenderness. "Discovered, like finding a star you never knew existed but suddenly can't imagine the sky without." The poetry of his words stole her breath. This man, who'd negotiated billion-dollar deals and proposed parenthood like a business merger, now looked at her with such naked emotion that it frightened her more than his wealth or power ever could. "This is supposed to be physical," she whispered, even as her heart raced with something far more dangerous than mere desire. "Just compatibility testing." His smile held sadness and understanding as his thumb traced the curve of her lower lip. "I think we both know it's already more than that, Emma." Before she could process the implications of his words, his mouth claimed hers again, and thought became impossible. Their bodies came together with an intensity that transcended their short acquaintance, as if they'd known each other across lifetimes rather than weeks. Later, as they lay tangled in sheets damp with exertion, Emma's head pillowed on Liam's chest while his fingers traced patterns on her bare shoulder. Neither spoke of contracts or clinics. The medical appointment scheduled for Monday seemed absurd now, after they'd spent hours learning each other's bodies with an intimacy no clinical procedure could match. As sleep claimed her, Emma felt Liam press a tender kiss to her temple, his arms tightening around her possessively, as if afraid she might vanish with the dawn. On the edge of consciousness, she caught his whispered confession, words not meant for her waking ears, perhaps not meant to be heard at all. "I'm falling in love with you, Emma Caldwell." And that was never part of the contract. In the darkness, her heart swelled, then constricted with equal parts exhilaration and terror, because despite all her carefully constructed defenses, despite her vows to keep this arrangement professional, she was falling too, without permission, without plan, without protection against the heartbreak that would surely follow when business and pleasure inevitably collided. Chapter 4. Double Blessing, Double Trouble. 6 weeks after their weekend in the Hamptons, Emma found herself at Liam's Montana ranch, a sprawling property nestled against the Rocky Mountains. The relationship had evolved into something neither had anticipated, occupying a space between business arrangement and passionate affair that defied easy definition. "I've never seen stars like this," Emma murmured as they sat on the deck of the main house. A stunning timber and glass structure that somehow managed to be both luxurious and rustic. Above them, the Montana sky displayed a tapestry of constellations impossible to see in New York. Liam's arm tightened around her shoulders. "I come here when the world gets too loud," he admitted. "No staff this weekend, just us." The intimacy of his words warmed her more than the outdoor fireplace crackling nearby. In the weeks since signing the contract, Liam had gradually revealed layers beneath his powerful exterior, a man who could conduct multinational business deals by day, then spend hours teaching neighborhood children to code through his foundation. "Are you feeling better?" he asked, his fingers trailing through her hair. "You barely touched dinner." Emma hesitated. She'd been queasy for days, attributing it to the stress of managing her expanding agency. But this morning, she'd finally acknowledged the other possibility and purchased a pregnancy test at a drugstore miles from her apartment. "Actually," she began, her heart suddenly pounding, "I'm late, almost 2 weeks." Liam went completely still beside her, his breathing suspended for a long moment before he turned to face her fully. "Have you tested?" She shook her head. "I brought one with me. I wanted us to be together when I found out." Without a word, he took her hand and led her back into the house. In the luxurious master bathroom, he waited outside while Emma took the test with trembling hands. The 3 minutes of waiting were the longest of her life. When she emerged, Liam was leaning against the opposite wall, his expression carefully controlled, but unable to hide the hope in his eyes. "It's positive," she whispered. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then Liam crossed the space between them in 2 long strides, lifting her off her feet in an embrace that stole her breath, When he set her down, his eyes shone with unexpected moisture. "A baby," he murmured, one hand moving to rest reverently against her still-fled stomach. Emma covered his hand with hers. "Our baby." His kiss was gentle yet possessive, filled with a tenderness that made her heart ache. "We'll need to confirm with the doctor," he said against her lips. "I'll arrange an appointment in New York next week." She nodded, suddenly overwhelmed. This had been the plan all along, a child in exchange for saving her business. So why did it feel so different now? Why did Liam's joy seem more about her than about securing his legacy? "Are you happy?" he asked, studying her face. "Yes," she answered truthfully, "just processing." That night, Liam made love to her with exquisite gentleness, his hands worshipping her body as if she'd become something sacred. As they lay afterward in the darkness, his arms wrapped protectively around her, Emma felt herself crossing a line she'd sworn not to cross, falling in love with the father of her child. The following week, they sat together in the office of New York's most exclusive obstetrician, waiting for the first ultrasound. Liam held her hand, his thumb tracing soothing circles across her knuckles. "This is cold," the technician warned as she applied gel to Emma's abdomen. The screen flickered to life with shadowy images. The technician moved the wand, squinting at the monitor. "Is something wrong?" Liam asked immediately, his grip tightening on Emma's hand. The technician smiled. "Not at all, just confirming what I'm seeing." She adjusted the wand again. "There," she pointed to the screen. "And there." Emma stared at the two distinct shapes. "Two—" "Congratulations," the technician said. "You're having twins." The world seemed to tilt beneath Emma. Twins? 2 babies instead of 1? Twice the responsibility? Twice the attachment. Twice everything they'd planned. She turned to look at Liam, expecting to see calculation in his eyes, the businessman assessing this unexpected development. Instead, she found pure, unfiltered joy. His face transformed with a smile so radiant it made her chest ache. "Twins," he whispered, bringing her hand to his lips. "Emma, we're having twins." The technician printed photos for them and discreetly left the room, giving them a moment alone. "This changes things," Emma said, still trying to process the news. "The contract specified 1 child." Liam's expression shifted to one of disbelief. "You can't possibly think I see this as a contractual issue, do you? 2 heirs instead of 1, that's twice the return on investment." The moment the words left her mouth, Emma regretted them. Pain flashed across Liam's face before he schooled his features. "Is that how you think I see our children? As investments?" "I don't know what to think anymore," she admitted. "This was supposed to be a simple arrangement." "Simple?" He shook his head, the muscle in his jaw tightening. "There's been nothing simple about this from the moment I met you, Emma." Before she could respond, he knelt beside the examination table, taking both her hands in his. "Listen to me. I don't care if it's 1 baby or 2 or a dozen. They're ours, something we created together. Can't you see what that means to me?" The vulnerability in his eyes undid her. "I'm scared," she whispered. "This is all happening so fast." His expression softened. "I know, but you're not alone in this. I promise you that." He hesitated, then added quietly, "Not just because of our agreement." The unspoken emotion behind his words hung between them like a tangible thing, neither ready to name it, both feeling its weight. "Let's go home," Liam said finally, helping her up. "We have a lot to talk about." Home turned out to be his Manhattan penthouse, where he insisted she stay while they dealt with the early stages of her pregnancy. The physician had mentioned increased risks with twins, particularly regarding morning sickness and fatigue. That evening, as they sat on his terrace, overlooking the glittering city, Liam surprised her by pulling out a small jewelry box. "This isn't what you think," he said, seeing her expression. "Not yet, anyway." He opened the box to reveal a delicate platinum bracelet with 2 tiny sapphire charms. "And for each baby. I had it made this afternoon." Emma touched the bracelet with trembling fingers. The gift was thoughtful, personal, nothing like the ostentatious displays of wealth she might have expected from a billionaire. It spoke of consideration rather than possession. "It's beautiful," she whispered as he fastened it around her wrist. I called my doctor today, Liam said suddenly. I'm starting a new treatment regimen for my condition, more aggressive management. Emma looked up, surprised. Why now? His eyes met hers, naked emotion shining through. Because I have more reason than ever to be here for as long as possible. He reached out to cup her cheek, his thumb stroking her skin with a tenderness that made her throat tighten. I never expected twins, he admitted. But I never expected you either, Emma. You've changed everything. How? She asked, her voice barely audible over the distant sounds of the city. Instead of answering with words, Liam drew her into his arms, his kiss conveying what neither was ready to say aloud. As the Manhattan lights twinkled around them, Emma surrendered to the feeling she'd been fighting, the impossible, undeniable truth that what had begun as a business arrangement had become the most profound connection of her life. Later that night, as Liam slept beside her, his hand protectively spread across her abdomen, Emma gazed at the bracelet glinting in the moonlight, filtering through the windows. 2 sapphires for 2 unexpected blessings, 2 lives that would forever bind her to this complex, passionate man who had stormed into her life with an outrageous proposition and somehow claimed her heart in the process. She placed her hand over his on her stomach, imagining the tiny lives growing beneath their joined fingers. Whatever came next, however their unorthodox relationship evolved, these children would be loved. Of that, at least, she was certain. Chapter 5. Protective Passion. By the 3rd month of her pregnancy, Emma had relocated to Liam's Manhattan penthouse, though she maintained her Brooklyn apartment as a symbolic gesture of independence. The morning sickness that had plagued her first trimester intensified with twins, often leaving her depleted and frustrated at her body's betrayal. You should be resting, Liam said, finding her hunched over her laptop at the dining table one evening, spreadsheets illuminating her tired face. He'd just returned from a 3-day business trip to Silicon Valley, his tie loosened and jacket discarded at the door. Emma looked up, unable to hide her smile at seeing him despite her exhaustion. The Peterson campaign launches next week. I need to finalize the strategy. Instead of arguing, Liam moved behind her chair, his strong hands finding the knots in her shoulders with unerring precision. You've built an exceptional team, he reminded her as his thumbs worked magic along her spine. Trust them to execute your vision. She let her head fall back against his chest, tension melting under his touch. That's rich coming from the notorious micromanager of Novosphere Technologies. His low chuckle vibrated against her. Do as I say, not as I do. When his hands moved from her shoulders to gently massage her temples, Emma nearly moaned with relief. These small acts of care, so at odds with the ruthless business titan portrayed in the media, had become commonplace in their evolving relationship. I missed you, she admitted softly, the words slipping out before she could censor them. Liam's hand stilled for a heartbeat before he bent to press a kiss to the top of her head. I missed you too. Both of you, he corrected, one hand moving to rest gently on her stomach, where the smallest bump was beginning to show. All 3 of us, she reminded him with a smile. His expression softened into that look of wonder that appeared whenever they discussed the twins. All 3 of you, he agreed, coming around to kneel before her chair. How are my children today? Active, especially when I'm trying to sleep. Liam pressed his palm more firmly against her belly, as if trying to connect with the tiny lives growing within. The tenderness in his touch made Emma's heart constrict with emotions she still resisted naming. Come to bed, he urged, standing and offering his hand. The spreadsheets will still be there tomorrow. Too tired to argue, Emma allowed him to lead her to the master suite with its panoramic views of the city. Their nighttime routine had developed a comfortable rhythm, Liam drawing her a bath infused with the lavender oil that helped with her nausea, then joining her in the massive soaking tub where his hands would wander with reverent appreciation over her changing body. Tonight, as she leaned back against his chest in the warm water, his arms encircling her, Emma felt the weight of unspoken words between them. The doctor's appointment yesterday, she began, watching his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows opposite the tub. There's something I didn't tell you. His body tensed behind her. What is it? Are the babies all right? They're fine, she assured him quickly. It's just, my blood pressure is elevated. Dr. Morgan wants me on partial bed rest for the next few weeks. She's concerned about preeclampsia." Liam was silent for a long moment, his hands unconsciously protective over her belly beneath the water. "Why didn't you tell me immediately?" "You were closing the Beijing deal. I didn't want to worry you." He turned her in his arms to face him, water sloshing around them. "Nothing, no deal, no company, nothing is more important to me than you and our children. Do you understand?" The fierce intensity in his eyes stole her breath. "Liam, MILLIONAIRE? Emma, I need you to hear this." His hands framed her face with gentle insistence. "When I created that contract, I thought I knew what I wanted. An heir, a continuation of my legacy. But now," he paused, vulnerability raw in his expression, "now the thought of anything happening to you terrifies me more than any business failure ever could." The naked emotion in his voice made her throat tighten. "I'm fine. We're all fine. It's just a precaution. A precaution we're going to take very seriously." His thumb traced her cheekbone with exquisite tenderness. "Starting tomorrow, you're working from home. I'll have a home office set up in the guest suite." Emma started to protest, then saw the fear beneath his commanding tone. This wasn't about control, it was about protection, about care. "Okay," she agreed softly. "But I still need to visit the office once a week. I can't run my agency entirely remotely." "Twice a month," he countered. "And I'll come with you. Once a week, and I'll use your driver instead of the subway." A smile tugged at his lips. "Still negotiating with me, even in the bathtub?" "Always," she confirmed, leaning forward to press a soft kiss to his mouth. What began as gentle reassurance quickly deepened into something more heated as Liam pulled her closer, water lapping around them as his hand slid down her back to her hips. The changes in her body had only intensified his desire, his touch reverent as he explored the fuller curves of her breasts, the roundness of her belly. "You're beautiful," he murmured against her throat as his lips traced a path down to her collarbone. "More beautiful every day." Emma arched into his touch, her body hypersensitive with pregnancy hormones, even with swollen ankles and stretch marks. "Especially then," he whispered, lifting her easily from the water and carrying her to the bedroom, not bothering with towels as he laid her against the silken sheets. "Every change in your body is because you're carrying my children, our children. How could that be anything but beautiful to me?" His mouth followed the water droplets trailing down her skin, worshipping each inch as if committing it to memory. When he finally joined their bodies, it was with such tender care that tears pricked Emma's eyes, not from the physical pleasure that built between them, but from the emotional intimacy that transcended their physical connection. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in the darkness, Liam's hand tracing idle patterns on her damp skin, Emma found herself wondering how she had gone from viewing this man as an arrogant billionaire to feeling so completely, terrifyingly attached to him. "I'm having the east wing of the penthouse renovated," he said into the comfortable silence. "For a nursery." Emma raised herself on one elbow to look at him. "When did you decide this?" "Last week. The designer is coming tomorrow for your input." His expression turned slightly sheepish. "I may have already approved some preliminary plans." "Of course you did," she said, unable to contain her smile. "Always 10 steps ahead." "Not always," he admitted, brushing a damp curl from her forehead. "You've managed to keep me thoroughly off balance since the day we met." The following weeks brought dramatic changes to their lives. True to his word, Liam had a state-of-the-art home office installed for Emma, complete with video conferencing capabilities that allowed her to maintain a presence at her agency while respecting her reduced schedule. More surprising was how thoroughly he rearranged his own life to accommodate her health needs. Board meetings were relocated to the penthouse. Business trips were shortened or delegated to his executive team. Most nights, Emma would fall asleep to the sound of his voice as he conducted international calls from the chair beside their bed, unwilling to leave her alone, even for business. One morning, Emma awoke to find the space beside her empty, unusual, as Liam typically ensured she never woke alone. Following the scent of coffee, decaf, to her ongoing dismay, she padded through the penthouse to find him in what had been a seldom-used sitting room, now transformed with scaffolding and paint samples. Liam stood in the center of the chaos, barefoot in sleep pants and a t-shirt, deep in conversation with a woman Emma recognized as Nora Patel, 45, one of the country's most sought-after interior designers. "No, the cribs need more space. Between them," he was saying, gesturing to the blueprint spread across a makeshift table. "And the monitoring system should be integrated with both our phones plus the night nurse's station." "Morning," Emma said, amused by his intensity over nursery designs. Liam turned immediately, crossing to her with a smile that still made her heart skip. "You should be resting," he chided gently, but the kiss he pressed to her lips held no real reproach. "The smell of coffee lured me out," she explained, nodding hello to the designer. "What are you doing?" "Finalizing the nursery plans." He led her to the blueprints, one arm wrapped protectively around her waist. "I wanted to surprise you, but since you're here, what do you think?" The designs were breathtaking. A celestial theme with constellations painted on midnight blue ceilings, walls that transitioned from deep space to dawn. Custom furniture crafted from sustainable materials. But what caught Emma's attention was the small door connecting to the master suite. "You moved the nursery closer to our bedroom," she noted, something warm unfurling in her chest at the change from the original East Wing location. "I want them near us," Liam said simply, "at least for the first year. Our bedroom. Us." The casual intimacy of his words reflected how thoroughly their lives had intertwined, far beyond the clinical arrangement outlined in that long-forgotten contract. Later that afternoon, as Emma worked from the chaise lounge Liam had insisted on installing in her office for mandatory rest periods, she was interrupted by the arrival of a delivery crew bearing dozens of books. "What's all this?" she asked, as Liam directed the placement of new bookshelves in what would become the nursery's reading nook. "Children's books," he explained, examining the spine of a colorful volume. "Every title my researchers identified as developmentally significant, plus the classics from multiple cultures. I want our children surrounded by stories from birth." Emma picked up a book of African folktales, identical to one her mother had read to her as a child. "How did you know about this one?" Liam looked suddenly self-conscious, an expression so rare it caught her attention immediately. "I may have had lunch with your mother last week." "You? What?" Emma stared at him in shock. She'd told her mother about the pregnancy, of course, but not the full circumstances of her arrangement with Liam. She was hesitant at first, he admitted, concerned about her daughter carrying a billionaire's children without the protection of marriage. "But we found common ground in wanting what's best for you and the babies." "And what exactly is that, according to the two of you?" Emma asked, torn between amusement and irritation at this alliance formed without her knowledge. Liam approached slowly, his expression serious as he took her hands in his. "Your happiness, your health, your continued independence." He paused, then added softly, "And perhaps, eventually, your heart." The simple honesty of his words stole her breath. "Liam, I'm not proposing, Emma. Not yet." His thumbs traced soothing circles on her wrists. "I know you're not ready for that, but I want you to know that this, what we're creating together, it's not just about the children for me anymore. It hasn't been for a long time." Emma felt tears threatening, cursing the pregnancy hormones that had left her emotional defenses in shambles. "What happened to our nice, clean, contractual arrangement?" she asked, trying for lightness despite the weight of the moment. His smile was tender as he brushed a tear from her cheek. "It got wonderfully, hopelessly complicated the moment you kissed me back in that Chicago hotel room." That night, lying in bed with Liam's arms around her and his hand protectively splayed across her growing belly, Emma felt one of the twins kick against his palm. The look of wonder that transformed his face, equal parts vulnerability and joy, broke something open inside her. "I think I'm falling in love with you," she whispered into the darkness, afraid to watch his reaction to words she'd never intended to speak. For a heart-stopping moment, Liam was perfectly still beside her. Then he gathered her closer, his lips finding hers in a kiss of such tender passion that it answered her confession without words. "I fell for you months ago," he murmured against her mouth. "I've just been waiting for you to catch up." As his hands and lips began their now familiar worship of her changing body, Emma surrendered to the truth she'd been fighting since that first passionate weekend in the Hamptons. What had begun as a business arrangement had evolved into something neither had anticipated. a connection that transcended contracts and conditions, that flourished in the space between calculation and chance. And as Liam's touch ignited her body, while his whispered words of devotion soothed her soul, Emma allowed herself to believe that perhaps their unorthodox beginning might lead to the most conventional of happy endings. Chapter 6. Hearts Entangled. "Liam, your sister just texted me. They've landed early." Emma's voice carried through the penthouse as she waddled, there was no other word for it, at 5 months pregnant with twins, from the bedroom to the living room where Liam was making last-minute arrangements. His head snapped up from his phone, a flash of panic crossing his normally composed features. "They weren't supposed to arrive until tonight." "Well, they're here now. Isabella says they're 20 minutes from Manhattan." Liam crossed the room in long strides, pulling Emma into his arms with the gentle protectiveness that had become second nature. "Are you sure you're up for this? We can still cancel." Emma laughed, smoothing his already perfect tie. "Cancel your sister's first visit in 2 years? I don't think so." She kissed him lightly, savoring the immediate way his body responded to her touch. "Besides, they have to know eventually, might as well be now." The truth was, Emma was nervous. In the 2 months since they'd confessed their feelings, their relationship had blossomed in the safe cocoon of their private life. They hadn't discussed how to explain their unconventional arrangement to others, especially Liam's traditional Spanish family. Technically, they were still operating under a contract, albeit one neither had mentioned in months. They weren't engaged, though Liam had taken to kissing her growing belly each night and whispering to the twins in Spanish about, "Your mama, who will someday be my wife." "Isabella can be intense," Liam warned, his hands moving to rest on the swell of her stomach where the twins were performing their daily acrobatics. "My parents raised us with very traditional values." "You mean she might object to her brother knocking up a woman with twins out of wedlock?" Emma teased, then sobered at his expression. "Liam, I'm kidding. It will be fine." His eyes searched hers. "I don't want them making you uncomfortable. You and the babies are my priority." The fierce protectiveness in his voice warmed her from within. Before she could respond, the elevator chimed, announcing visitors. "That was not 20 minutes, Emma muttered, suddenly self-conscious about her maternity dress and the obvious evidence of her pregnancy. Liam squeezed her hand. "Remember, I love you." The words, still new enough to send shivers down her spine, gave her courage as the elevator doors opened. Isabella Navarro Vega, 35, burst into the penthouse like a force of nature, her dark eyes so similar to Liam's, taking in everything at once. Behind her followed a distinguished man Emma assumed was her husband, Diego, 40, and 2 beautiful children who shared the Navarro family's striking features. "Imanado!" Isabella cried, throwing herself into Liam's arms. "Ni demasiado tiempo!" As the siblings embraced, Isabella's gaze found Emma over Liam's shoulder, her eyes widening, traveling, obviously, to Emma's protruding stomach before returning to her face with unconcealed shock. "Isabella," Liam said, switching to English as he stepped back and reached for Emma's hand. "This is Emma Caldwell, my partner, Emma, my sister Isabella, her husband Diego, and my niece and nephew, Lucia, 9, and Mateo, 7. Emma stepped forward with an outstretched hand. "It's wonderful to finally meet you. Liam talks about you constantly." Isabella took her hand after the briefest hesitation, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. "Partner," she repeated, the emphasis subtle but unmistakable. Her gaze returned to Emma's belly, and clearly more than that, it seems. Diego moved forward smoothly, kissing Emma's cheeks with European formality. "Please forgive my wife's directness. The shock of seeing her brother so domesticated has temporarily stolen her manners." The gentle reprimand broke the tension as Isabella flushed slightly. "Forgive me. It's just that Liam never mentioned—" She gestured vaguely toward Emma's stomach. "It's a relatively recent development," Emma offered with a smile. "We're expecting twins in about 4 months." "Twins?" Isabella's expression softened immediately. "Dios mío! Twins run in our family. Our grandmother was a twin." As the initial awkwardness faded, the family moved to the living room, where Liam had arranged for refreshments. The children quickly gravitated to Emma, fascinated by her pregnancy and full of questions about the babies that made the adults laugh. "Will you be getting married before they arrive?" Lucia, the 9-year-old niece, asked with childish directness as she pressed her small hand against Emma's belly, delighted when one of the twins kicked in response. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Emma glanced at Liam, unsure how to answer. "Lucia," Isabella began, but Liam interrupted gently. "It's all right." He met Emma's eyes across the room, something soft and private in his gaze. "Emma and I are taking things one step at a time." "But Papa says babies should have married parents," Lucia persisted, oblivious to the tension. Diego cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should let the children see their bedrooms? I'm sure they'd like to rest before dinner." After the children were settled in the guest rooms with their tablets, the adults reconvened for cocktails. Sparkling water with lime for Emma, while the others enjoyed Liam's expensive scotch. "So," Isabella said, settling beside Emma on the sofa while the men discussed Diego's banking business across the room, "how did you and my brother meet? He's been frustratingly vague in his messages." Emma hesitated, unsure how much Liam wanted her to reveal. "We met during a business trip in Chicago," she said carefully. "I own a marketing agency that was pitching to one of his acquisitions." "Ah, business, always my brother's first love." Isabella's smile was knowing as she sipped her drink. "Until now, it seems." "He's very passionate about his work," Emma agreed neutrally. Isabella laughed softly. "That's a diplomatic answer. Most women call him obsessive, controlling, and impossible." She studied Emma curiously. "Yet here you are, carrying his children and looking at him like he hung the moon." Heat rose in Emma's cheeks. Was she that transparent? "Liam is not always what he seems on the surface." "Clearly." Isabella's eyes softened. "I haven't seen him like this before. The way he watches you like you might disappear if he looks away." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "He doesn't bring women to the penthouse, ever. Not even Sophia, and they were engaged for nearly a year." Emma tried to hide her surprise. Liam had mentioned an engagement years ago, but few details. "People change," she offered. "My brother doesn't," Isabella replied firmly. "Not without significant motivation." Her gaze dropped to Emma's stomach again. "Are the twins why you're not married yet? Was this unexpected?" The delicate question hung between them. Emma opened her mouth to explain their arrangement, then stopped. How could she possibly describe the contract, the business deal that had evolved into the deepest love she'd ever known? "The timing was unconventional," she said finally, "but the babies are very much wanted by both of us." Isabella seemed about to press further when Liam appeared beside them, his hand coming to rest possessively on Emma's shoulder. "Interrogating my partner, Isabella?" His tone was light, but Emma sensed the protectiveness beneath. "Just getting acquainted with the woman who's apparently tamed you," Isabella replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Though I'm still waiting to see an engagement ring. Mama would be scandalized." Liam's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I don't recall you and Diego being traditional in your timeline either." Isabella flushed, and Diego laughed from across the room. "She has you there, mi amor. Lucia was already on the way when you finally agreed to marry me." The tension eased as they moved to the dining room for dinner, though Emma noticed Isabella watching them throughout the meal, particularly the unconscious ways Liam attended to her, refilling her water glass, ensuring she had enough cushioning, his hand frequently finding hers or resting gently on her belly. Later that night, after their guests had retired to the guest wing, Emma sank gratefully into bed beside Liam, who immediately pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry about Isabella," he murmured against her hair. "She means well, but subtlety has never been her strength." Emma traced idle patterns on his chest. "She loves you. She wants to make sure I'm not taking advantage of the eligible bachelor billionaire." His laugh rumbled beneath her ear. "If she knew how this began, let's maybe not share the baby for business bailout contract with your family," Emma suggested dryly. "I don't think it would improve their impression of me." Liam's arms tightened around her. "I don't care what they think. I care about you, about us." He paused, then added softly, "I never expected this, Emma. Any of it. The way I feel about you terrifies me sometimes." She raised her head to look at him. "The great Liam Navarro. Terrified?" "Completely." His eyes held such vulnerability it made her chest ache. "I've built my empire believing I needed nothing and no one. Now, I can't imagine my life without you in it." Before she could respond, her phone chimed with a text message. Reluctantly pulling away from Liam's embrace, Emma checked the screen. "It's my mother," she said, surprise coloring her voice. "She wants to have breakfast tomorrow. She never comes to Manhattan." Liam propped himself up on one elbow. "Do you think Isabella contacted her somehow? How would she even have her number?" Emma frowned, then understanding dawned. "The lunch you had with her, you exchanged information, didn't you?" He had the grace to look sheepish. "I may have suggested they connect." "Liam," Emma sat up fully now, "you can't orchestrate people's relationships like business mergers," she said, irritation flaring despite her exhaustion. "People aren't companies to be acquired and merged." "I wasn't," he began defensively, then stopped himself, his expression softening. "You're right. I overstepped." He took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her wrist. "It's just that I've lived so long without family, without connections that matter. Now that I have you, these babies, this chance at something real, I want to build bridges, create connections that will last beyond me." The vulnerability beneath his words, the orphaned boy still seeking family bonds, melted her irritation instantly. She knew how deeply Liam felt the absence of his parents, how fiercely he treasured the few family connections that remained. "Fine," she relented, "but no more arranging my social calendar without consulting me first." His smile was both grateful and mischievous as he pulled her back into his arms. "Does that include the baby moon I've planned for next month? A private island off St. Lucia, just before the doctor restricts your travel?" "Liam Navarro." But her protest lacked conviction as his lips found the sensitive spot beneath her ear. "Consider it a business trip," he murmured against her skin. "Very important business, indeed." Further complaints died on her lips as his mouth claimed hers, the passion between them flaring hot and immediate despite her advancing pregnancy. His hands worshipped her changing body with reverent appreciation that still amazed her. How this powerful man could make her feel so beautiful, so desired, even as her body transformed to accommodate their children. Morning brought another family complication as Emma met her mother at an upscale cafe near Central Park. Eleanor Caldwell, 60, had the same striking features as her daughter, though her close-cropped, silver hair and designer glasses gave her a distinguished academic air, fitting her position as a university department chair. "I see the pregnancy is progressing well," Eleanor observed after kissing her daughter's cheek, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Twins! Quite the commitment for a relationship that began as a business transaction." Emma nearly choked on her. "Water, he told you." "Liam was surprisingly forthcoming during our lunch," Eleanor replied, unruffled. "I appreciate honesty, even when the truth is unconventional. Mom, it's not what it sounds like anymore. Things have changed between us." Eleanor raised an elegant eyebrow. "Clearly, since you're living in his penthouse and carrying his children, the question is whether they've changed enough." "What does that mean?" "It means," Eleanor said carefully, "that I raised you to be independent, to never depend on a man for your security or happiness. Yet here you are, pregnant with a billionaire's babies, living in his home, your business thriving thanks to his investment." The words stung with uncomfortable truth. "My agency is successful because of my work, not just his money." "Of course it is. Your talent was never in question." Eleanor reached across the table to grip her daughter's hand. "But Emma, when these babies come, when your body and heart are entirely focused on these new lives, will your independence remain intact? Will your identity survive being Liam Navarro's woman, the mother of his heirs?" "That's not how he sees me," Emma protested, though a seed of doubt took root. "We love each other." "I'm sure you do," Eleanor said softly. "But love without equality rarely survives. His sister called me last night, concerned that her brother has no plans to marry you before the twins arrive." Emma's eyes widened. "Isabella called you? She's protective of her brother and his reputation, not unlike Liam himself, actually." Eleanor's smile held a hint of admiration. She wanted to assess my position on the situation. "And what did you tell her?" Emma asked, dreading the answer. "I told her that my daughter makes her own decisions, and that if marriage was not yet on the table, I trusted there were good reasons." Eleanor sipped her tea calmly. "I also suggested that pressuring you would be counterproductive. Relief flooded through Emma. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Eleanor warned. "I support your choices, but I need to know they're truly your choices, not concessions made because of financial entanglement or pregnancy hormones. Are you happy, Emma? Truly happy? Not just swept away by passion and luxury?" The question gave Emma pause. These past months with Liam had been a whirlwind of emotion and adjustment. The contract that had brought them together now seemed like a relic from another lifetime, yet it still legally bound them. Their relationship had evolved organically into love, yet they'd never fully addressed the power imbalance at its foundation. "I love him," she said finally, "more than I thought possible, and he loves me, not just as the mother of his children." "Then why aren't you engaged?" Eleanor asked bluntly. Emma smiled ruefully. "Because he hasn't asked, and because I'm not sure I'd say yes if he did. Not yet." Eleanor studied her daughter's face. "Now that sounds like my independent girl." When Emma returned to the penthouse, she found Liam and Isabella in the kitchen, having what appeared to be an intense conversation in rapid Spanish. They fell silent at her entrance, exchanging glances that raised Emma's suspicions immediately. "Don't stop on my account," she said, hanging her purse on the back of a chair. Isabella recovered first, smiling too brightly. "We were just discussing family matters. How was breakfast with your mother?" "Illuminating," Emma replied, eyes fixed on Liam. "She mentioned you two had a nice chat on the phone last night." Isabella at least had the grace to look embarrassed. "I thought it would be good to connect, mother to mother, about the babies. The babies who aren't here yet and already have more people managing their lives than a Hollywood child star," Emma said dryly. Liam approached her, his expression serious. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Alone." After Isabella discreetly excused herself, Liam led Emma to the terrace, his usual confidence seemingly diminished. "Your family thinks we should get married," Emma said before he could speak. "Yes," he didn't deny it. "But that's not why I want to talk." Something in his tone made her heart beat faster. "What is it?" "Isabella received a call this morning from a journalist asking for confirmation about my contract baby arrangement with a struggling businesswoman." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "What? How could anyone know about that?" "I don't know," Liam said grimly. "The contract was confidential, seen only by our lawyers. But someone is talking to the press." "Is this why Isabella called my mother? To coordinate damage control?" Liam nodded. "Partially. She's protective of the family name." He hesitated, then added, "She also suggested that announcing an engagement would neutralize the story." Emma stiffened. "So, I should marry you to avoid a scandal. How romantic." "That's not—" He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I don't care about the scandal, Emma. I care about protecting you and our children from media intrusion. By rushing into a marriage to save appearances?" She stepped back, something cold forming in her chest. "Is that what these past months have been? A long-term public relations strategy?" Hurt flashed across Liam's face. "How can you even think that? I love you. I've told you that, shown you that, while conveniently solving your image problem at the same time." As soon as the words left her mouth, Emma regretted them. She knew they weren't fair, but fear and hormones and her mother's warnings about independence were colliding inside her. "Is that what you think of me?" Liam's voice was dangerously quiet. "After everything we've shared?" Before she could respond, Isabella appeared at the terrace doorway. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Diego's mother just called. She saw the gossip item online already. It's spreading." The next hours passed in a blur of phone calls and strategy sessions. Liam's PR team arrived to manage the situation, presenting options ranging from no comment to public statements. Through it all, Emma felt increasingly like a spectator in her own life crisis, watched with sympathetic concern by Liam's family as the professionals took control. That evening, after Isabella and her family had tactfully retreated to their hotel for the night, Emma found Liam in his home office, still on the phone with his legal team. "I don't care what it costs," he was saying, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Find out who leaked it and make them regret it." He looked up as Emma entered, his expression softening immediately. "I need to go handle it." He ended the call and came around his desk, reaching for her. "You should be resting." "I've been resting all day while your team manages my scandal," she said, avoiding his touch. I need to know what's happening, Liam. This affects me too. He let his hands fall to his sides. The story's been contained for now. My team is tracking down the source. And your family? They must be thrilled about the scandal. They're concerned, he admitted, but they support us. Support your decision to have a contract baby with a struggling black business owner? Emma laughed without humor. I doubt that's the narrative they're embracing. Liam's expression hardened slightly. They support me loving the woman who's carrying my children. They support our relationship however it began. Do they? Emma challenged. Or would they prefer a quick wedding to legitimize the situation? What's really bothering you, Emma? He asked quietly. This isn't just about the media or my family. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling vulnerable. My mother asked if I was losing myself in this relationship, if I was sacrificing my independence because of the babies, because of your money. Understanding dawned in his eyes. And the leak makes you feel like our private life is being controlled by outside forces, like you're losing even more autonomy. Emma nodded, tears threatening. Damn pregnancy hormones. I love you, Liam, but I didn't sign up to be a scandal or a publicity problem for your family to manage. I don't want to be seen as the woman who trapped you with a pregnancy. No one who matters sees you that way, he said firmly, closing the distance between them. This time, she didn't resist when he gathered her close. I certainly don't. She rested her forehead against his chest, breathing in his familiar scent. Your sister suggested we get engaged. Isabella has opinions about everything, he said, his voice rumbling beneath her ear. But this decision is ours alone. Pulling back slightly, Emma looked up at him. What do you want, Liam, truly? His answer came without hesitation. I want you, these babies, our family. I want to wake up beside you every morning for the rest of my life. He cupped her face with gentle hands. I've wanted to marry you since that weekend in the Hamptons, Emma. But I won't propose because of a scandal or family pressure. When I ask, it will be because we're both ready, because it's right for us. The simple honesty in his words melted the ice that had formed around her heart. Rising on tiptoes, she pressed her lips to his in a kiss that conveyed everything she couldn't yet put into words. Her love, her fear, her trust. As Liam's arms tightened around her, his mouth claiming hers with a passion that still took her breath away, Emma knew they would weather this storm together, not as a billionaire and his contract partner, but as two people who had found unexpected love in the most unconventional of beginnings. Chapter 7. Love's Ultimatum. The media storm surrounding their relationship peaked and subsided over the next 3 weeks. Liam's formidable legal team had identified the leak. A junior paralegal at Emma's former lawyer's office who had sold information to a gossip blog. A combination of legal threats and a substantial settlement with confidentiality provisions had stemmed the tide of stories, though Emma still felt the occasional sting of curious glances when she ventured into Manhattan's elite social circles. At Liam's side, at 7 months pregnant with twins, Emma felt simultaneously more powerful and more vulnerable than ever before. Her body had become a temple that Liam worshipped with increasing devotion, his hands and mouth mapping her changing landscape each night with reverent attention that left her breathless. Yet she also felt the physical limitations of late pregnancy, the fatigue, the awkward waddle that had replaced her confident stride, the dependence on others for tasks she'd once handled effortlessly. Your blood pressure is still elevated, Dr. Morgan noted during their weekly checkup, her expression concerned as she reviewed Emma's chart. Not dangerously so, but we need to monitor this closely. Twins already carry higher risks. Liam, who hadn't missed a single appointment since learning of the pregnancy, immediately tensed beside her. Should she be on complete bed rest? Not yet, the doctor replied. But I want to see you twice weekly now, Emma, and you need to minimize stress. Emma nearly laughed. The bumps and scars minimize stress while running an expanding agency, managing a high-profile relationship with a billionaire, and preparing for twins? But she nodded dutifully, knowing Liam would enforce the doctor's orders with military precision. The nursery is finished, she told the doctor, trying to focus on positives. And we've interviewed 3 night nurses? 6, Liam corrected. We've narrowed it to 3 candidates. Dr. Morgan smiled. You're well prepared. Just remember that the best thing you can do for these babies right now is take care of yourself. In the car heading back to the penthouse, Liam's hand rested protectively on her belly, where the twins were performing their daily gymnastics routine. "I'm moving your workstation to the bedroom," he announced. "You can still video conference with your team, but from bed." Emma raised an eyebrow. "I don't recall the doctor prescribing bedroom confinement." "She said minimize stress and rest more," he countered, his thumb tracing circles on her abdomen. "I'm simply facilitating that. By making decisions about my work environment without consulting me." She kept her tone light, but the issue was a recurring one. Liam's protective instincts, always strong, had intensified as her pregnancy progressed, sometimes crossing the line into controlling behavior that made Emma bristle. He had the grace to look slightly abashed. "I worry about you, about all of you." His hand spread wider across her stomach, as if trying to embrace both twins at once. Emma covered his hand with hers. "I know, but Liam, you can't manage every aspect of this pregnancy, of our lives." His eyes, when they met hers, held vulnerability she rarely saw in public. "When it comes to you and our children, I can't bear the thought of anything going wrong. Not when it's within my power to prevent it." The raw honesty in his voice softened her irritation. She knew his protectiveness stemmed from love, not a desire to control. "Let's compromise. I work from the chaise in the living room near the terrace. Fresh air, comfortable position, but not bedroom imprisonment." His smile was relieved. "Acceptable terms, Miss Caldwell." That evening, after a quiet dinner on the terrace, Liam suggested a walk through the rooftop garden he'd installed for her, a miniature oasis of flowering plants and comfortable seating areas accessible only from their penthouse. "I can't remember the last time I had this much energy," Emma admitted as they strolled slowly along the illuminated stone pathways. Her back had been aching all afternoon, but the gentle movement seemed to ease the discomfort. "The doctor said walking is good for you," Liam agreed, his arm around her waist offering subtle support. "Though we should keep it brief." Emma laughed. "There's the overprotective father-to-be I know and love." They reached the small gazebo at the garden center, a white wooden structure with climbing roses and a cushioned bench that had become Emma's favorite spot for morning meditation. To her surprise, the interior was illuminated with dozens of tiny lights, transforming the simple structure into something magical. "When did you do this?" she asked, delighted by the fairy tale effect. Liam helped her to the bench, then knelt before her instead of sitting beside her, something in his expression making Emma's heart beat faster. "Emma," he began, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "these past months have transformed my life in ways I never anticipated. What began as a business arrangement has become the greatest gift I've ever received." She felt warmth bloom in her chest, even as nervous butterflies took flight in her stomach. "Liam." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I promised I wouldn't propose because of family pressure or public relations concerns. I'm not." His eyes held hers with unwavering intensity. "I'm asking because I love you, because I want to build a life with you that goes beyond contracts and arrangements. Because I want our children to know their parents chose each other completely." Opening the box, he revealed a stunning ring, a flawless emerald-cut diamond flanked by smaller sapphires that matched the bracelet he'd given her when they learned about the twins. "Will you marry me, Emma Caldwell? Not because of the babies or the scandal or anything else, but because we belong together." Emma's throat tightened as she stared at the exquisite ring. She loved this man with an intensity that still surprised her. Their life together had become more fulfilling than she'd ever imagined possible. Yet something held her back from the immediate acceptance her heart wanted to give. "Liam," she whispered, tears threatening, "I love you so much." But his expression remained open, though she saw a flicker of apprehension in his eyes. "But everything between us has happened so fast. The contract, the pregnancy, moving in together." She took a shaky breath. "Sometimes I wonder if we've built our relationship on circumstances rather than choice." "Do you doubt my love for you?" he asked quietly. "No," she answered without hesitation. "But I wonder if we would have chosen each other without the contract, without the babies bringing us together." He considered her words seriously. "I believe we would have. Perhaps not as quickly, but eventually. Some connections are inevitable, Emma." "Then what's the rush?" She touched his face gently. "We may not wait until after the babies are born, until we've found our footing as parents, until we know for certain it's truly about us, not about creating a traditional family structure. Disappointment flickered across his features before he masked it. "You're saying no." "I'm saying not yet," she corrected, tears threatening as she saw the flash of pain in his eyes. "I want to marry you someday, Liam. With my whole heart, I do. But I need to be certain I'm doing it for the right reasons. Not because I'm pregnant. Not because it's expected. Not because it solves problems or pleases families. Just because I love you and choose you fully and freely, with nothing clouding that choice." Liam closed the ring box slowly, his expression a masterpiece of control, though his eyes betrayed the depth of his disappointment. "I understand." He rose from his kneeling position, tucking the box back into his pocket with fingers that trembled slightly. "Your independence, your strength of conviction, they've always been part of what I love most about you, even when they break my heart." The honesty in those last quiet words pierced Emma more deeply than anger would have. That night, for the first time since she'd moved in, Liam slept on his side of the bed without gathering her against him, the inches between them feeling like miles. Yet, in the deepest part of the night, his hand still found its way to rest protectively on her belly. His connection to their twins unbroken, even as the bond between their parents suffered its first real fracture. The following days brought a subtle tension to their relationship. Nothing overtly wrong, but a careful politeness that hadn't existed before. Liam was attentive as ever, ensuring her comfort, attending appointments, handling business calls from home to remain close. Yet, the easy intimacy they'd shared had developed a hairline fracture that worried Emma more than she wanted to admit. A week after the proposal, Emma entered the kitchen to find Liam on the phone, speaking rapid Spanish. He ended the call when he saw her, offering a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Good morning. How are you feeling?" he asked, pouring her a cup of decaffeinated tea. "Tired." The twins were having a dance party at 3:00 a.m. She accepted the tea gratefully. "Was that Isabella?" "Yes, she's arranged for my grandmother's wedding ring to be sent from Madrid for restoration." His tone was casual, but Emma felt her heart sink. "It's a family heirloom," he continued evenly. "I should have had it properly catalogued in the estate inventory years ago. You were going to give me your grandmother's ring, Liam." "Yes." The realization made her chest tighten painfully. His eyes met hers. "I had it sized to fit you. The ring the other night was temporary. I thought you might prefer choosing your own design." He shrugged slightly. "It doesn't matter now." But it did matter. The knowledge that he'd planned to offer her his grandmother's ring, a priceless family heirloom, made her rejection sting with fresh pain. She'd wounded him more deeply than she'd realized. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "You didn't," he replied, though they both knew it was a lie. "You were honest about your feelings. I respect that." Before she could respond, he glanced at his watch. "I have meetings downtown this morning." "Will you be all right here alone for a few hours? Mrs. Chen will be here if you need anything." Emma nodded, watching as he gathered his things with efficient movements. At the elevator, he paused to kiss her forehead, a chaste gesture compared to their usual passionate goodbyes. "Liam?" she called as the elevator doors opened. "I do love you." His smile held sadness. "I know. It's just not enough yet." After he left, Emma retreated to the nursery, now fully finished with its celestial theme and matching cribs. Running her fingers over the hand-painted constellations, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Was her insistence on independence worth the pain she saw in Liam's eyes? Was she clinging to outdated fears while the man she loved offered everything she'd ever wanted? That evening, Liam returned later than usual. Emma had texted when he missed dinner, receiving only a brief reply about meetings running long. When he finally arrived near midnight, the scent of expensive scotch clung faintly to his clothes as he moved quietly through the darkened penthouse, clearly assuming she was asleep. "Working late?" she asked from the living room doorway. He turned, surprise crossing his features. "You should be sleeping." "Hard to sleep without you," she admitted, the simple truth slipping out before she could censor it. Something softened in his expression as he crossed to her. "The Beijing acquisition hit complications. We had to strategize over dinner and drinks," she noted, not accusingly. "And drinks," he acknowledged. "I'm sorry I'm late." His hand moved to touch her belly in what had become an unconscious habit, but he hesitated, as if suddenly uncertain of his welcome. The small movement broke something inside Emma, this powerful, confident man, now hesitant to touch her, to touch his own children. She caught his hand and placed it firmly on her stomach. "They missed you too," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "We all did." The careful mask he'd worn since her rejection cracked, vulnerability shining through. "Emma!" Before he could continue, she rose, on tiptoes, and pressed her lips to his. He froze momentarily, then responded with carefully restrained passion. When they broke apart, his eyes searched hers. "I can't keep doing this," he said quietly, "pretending I'm not devastated that you don't want to be my wife." "That's not what I said," she protested. "I just need time." "Time, I understand," he interrupted gently. "But I think you need space too. Space to be sure about what you want without feeling pressured by our living situation, by my constant presence." Fear clutched at Emma's heart. "What are you saying?" "I think you should spend some time at your apartment," he said, the words clearly difficult for him. "Not because I want you to go, but because you need to make this decision freely, without me hovering, without the comforts of this lifestyle influencing you. You're asking me to leave." Tears sprang to her eyes. "I'm giving you the independence you value," he corrected, his voice rough with emotion. "So you can be certain, one way or the other." "I'm 7 months pregnant with twins." Emma's voice rose with disbelief. "You want me to go back to my 4th-floor walk-up apartment alone?" "Of course not," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've arranged for a temporary residence, a brownstone in Park Slope with an elevator, full security, a live-in nurse. Everything you and the babies need, but separate from me and my world." The realization that he'd planned this, had already arranged alternative housing, felt like a physical blow. "When did you decide this?" "Yesterday," he admitted. "After I spoke with your mother." "My mother?" Shock piled upon shock. "You discussed our relationship with my mother behind my back?" "She called me," Liam explained, his expression pained. "She was concerned about you, about us. She suggested you might need space to sort through your feelings without my influence." Betrayal burned hot in Emma's chest. "So the two of you decided what's best for me again. No one's deciding anything for you, Emma." Frustration edged his voice. "I'm trying to give you what you keep asking for. Independence. Freedom to choose without pressure. By kicking me out. By loving you enough to let you go." The words burst from him with unexpected force. "Even though every instinct I have screams to keep you close, to protect you, to make you mine in every possible way." The raw emotion in his voice silenced her protests. For the first time, Emma truly understood the cost of his restraint, how this man, accustomed to controlling every aspect of his world, had been fighting his own nature to give her the freedom she demanded. "1 month," he continued more quietly. "Stay at the brownstone until the babies come. If after they're born you still feel uncertain about us, about our future together, then we'll know." "Know what?" she whispered, though part of her already understood. "Whether what we have is real or just a beautiful illusion created by circumstance." His hands framed her face with heartbreaking gentleness. "I love you enough to risk losing you, Emma. Do you love me enough to risk finding certainty?" The question hung between them, unanswerable in that moment, as Liam bent to kiss her, a kiss that tasted of goodbye. Emma felt their twins kick vigorously, as if protesting the pain radiating between their parents. "When?" she asked against his lips. "Tomorrow," he murmured. "Everything is prepared." That night they made love with desperate intensity, neither speaking of the separation to come, both pouring unspoken emotions into every touch, every kiss. Afterward, as Liam held her close, his hand possessively spread across her belly, Emma listened to his heartbeat and wondered if she was making the greatest mistake of her life. But when morning came, she packed a small bag and let him drive her to the Park Slope brownstone, a gorgeous home that spoke of his care in every detail, from the elevator to the fully stocked nursery, to the private garden where she could walk safely. As Liam prepared to leave, standing awkwardly in the foyer of what would be her temporary home, Emma felt panic rising. "This is ridiculous," she said suddenly. I don't need to be apart from you to know I love you. But you do need space to know if you want the future I'm offering, he replied gently, without feeling obligated by pregnancy or financial ties or my overwhelming presence. The truth in his words silenced her arguments. He knew her too well, understood her fears about losing herself, about making choices from dependence rather than desire. Liam kissed her one final time, his hands cradling her face as if memorizing its contours. 1 month, he whispered against her lips. Find your certainty, Emma. As the door closed behind him, Emma placed her hands on her belly, where their children grew stronger each day. What do you think, little ones? She whispered. Is your father right? Do I need this space to be sure? The twins kicked in response, one on her right side, one on her left, as if voting in opposite directions. Emma laughed, through sudden tears, the sound echoing in the beautiful, empty house that held everything she needed except the man she loved. Chapter 8. Medical Crisis. 2 weeks into their separation, Emma had settled into an uneasy routine at the Park Slope brownstone. Everything was perfect except for the Liam-shaped hole in her life that nothing could fill. They spoke daily, brief, slightly awkward conversations about her health and the baby's development. What they didn't discuss was them, their relationship, their future, the ultimatum that hung between them like a guillotine blade. Your blood pressure is higher again, Nurse Harper, 50, noted during their morning check-in. Dr. Morgan will want to know about this. Emma sighed. It's just stress. I'm fine. Stress isn't good for the babies, the nurse reminded her. Perhaps it's time to reconsider this living arrangement. Mr. Navarro calls 3 times a day to check on you. The revelation surprised Emma. He does? He's quite concerned, wants updates on everything from your diet to your sleep patterns. The thought of Liam monitoring her welfare from afar brought a lump to her throat. That sounds like him. By afternoon, the discomfort in her back had intensified, accompanied by periodic twinges that Emma tried to dismiss as Braxton Hicks contractions. At 34 weeks, it was too early for real labor. Her phone chimed with a text from Liam. Meeting running late. Can we speak at 8 instead of 7? Emma typed a quick agreement, ignoring a sharper pain that radiated across her abdomen. She'd talk to Nurse Harper if it continued, but there was no need to worry Liam. By 6 o'clock, however, Emma could no longer deny something was wrong. The pains were coming regularly now, growing stronger with each occurrence. When she felt dampness between her thighs and discovered her water had broken, fear gripped her heart. Nurse Harper, she called, struggling to keep her voice steady as another contraction seized her. I think I'm in labor. The next hour passed in a blur of phone calls and preparations. Dr. Morgan was contacted, an ambulance summoned, hospital arrangements made. Through it all, Emma kept thinking about Liam, how he should be here, how she needed him. Have you reached Mr. Navarro? She asked, as paramedics helped her onto a stretcher. His assistant said he's in a meeting at Mount Sinai, the nurse replied. Something about his heart condition. We've left urgent messages. Heart condition. The words sent ice through Emma's veins, despite the pain of another contraction. Liam had mentioned increased monitoring of his long QT syndrome, but not a specific appointment today. Was something wrong? In the ambulance, racing through evening traffic toward New York Presbyterian, Emma clutched her phone, willing it to ring with Liam's voice. Each contraction brought fresh terror. Too early, too fast, without Liam beside her. Twins at 34 weeks have excellent outcomes, the paramedic assured her. The NICU team is waiting, but Emma's thoughts were divided, half with the babies fighting their way into the world too soon, half with Liam and his mysterious medical appointment. As another contraction ripped through her body, she made a decision that crystallized with sudden clarity amid the pain. She wanted Liam, not just for today, not just for the birth, but for always. Call him again, she gasped between contractions. Please. At Mount Sinai Hospital, Liam was sitting across from his cardiologist, staring at the test results with mounting concern. The stress of recent months had accelerated his condition. The doctor was recommending an implantable cardioverter defibrillator, a device that would shock his heart back into rhythm if the dangerous arrhythmia his condition caused should occur. We should schedule the procedure soon, the doctor advised. Your latest readings are concerning. Before Liam could respond, his phone buzzed repeatedly. Glancing down, he saw 5 missed calls from the nurse he'd hired for Emma. Fear clutched his heart as he excused himself to return the call. "Mr. Navarro," the nurse's voice was tense. "Ms. Caldwell has gone into premature labor. She's being transported to New York Presbyterian now." The world seemed to tilt beneath him. "I'm on my way. She's asking for you," the nurse added. "She needs you." Liam ended the call, already moving toward the door. "I have to go," he told the cardiologist. "The mother of my children is in labor," the doctor frowned. "Mr. Navarro, your condition—" "Can wait," Liam interrupted firmly. "Nothing is more important than this." Outside the hospital, he called for his helicopter, the fastest way across Manhattan in evening traffic. As the pilot prepared for takeoff, Liam felt the familiar fluttering in his chest that signaled his heart's irregular rhythm. Ignoring it, he focused on Emma, on their babies coming too soon, on the precious minutes ticking away while he wasn't by her side. During the short flight, the fluttering intensified to a painful pounding. The stress the doctor had warned could trigger an episode, but there was no choice. Emma needed him. Their children needed him. At New York Presbyterian, Emma fought against the pain as nurses prepared her for an emergency C-section. Her blood pressure had spiked dangerously, forcing the doctors to act quickly. "Where's Liam?" she asked for the 10th time, tears streaming down her face. "Has anyone reached him?" "We're still trying, honey," a kind-faced nurse assured her. "Now, focus on these babies." As they wheeled her toward the operating room, Emma heard a commotion in the corridor. Raised voices, running footsteps. Then, suddenly, miraculously, Liam was there, still in his business suit, face pale but eyes blazing with determination. "Emma!" He rushed to her side, taking her hand. "I'm here. I'm here now." The relief of seeing him was so intense, she nearly sobbed. "The babies, they're coming too soon." "They'll be fine," he promised, pressing his lips to her forehead. "We'll all be fine." But as he spoke, Liam's face contorted in pain, his hand clutching his chest. Emma watched in horror as he staggered, catching himself against the wall. "Liam, what's wrong?" A nurse noticed immediately, calling for assistance. "Sir, are you all right?" Liam straightened with visible effort. "It's nothing, my heart condition, just stress." But the words came out strained, his breathing labored. "He needs medical attention," the nurse told a colleague. "Get a cardiac team down here." "No," Liam insisted, his eyes never leaving Emma's. "I'm staying with her." "Liam, please," Emma begged, terror gripping her as another contraction hit. "Let them help you." "Not until I know you and our children are safe," he said stubbornly, though his face had gone alarmingly gray. Events blurred after that, Liam collapsing as they entered the operating room, medical staff rushing in 2 directions, voices shouting orders. The last thing Emma saw before anesthesia claimed her was Liam being lifted onto a gurney beside hers, his eyes finding hers across the chaos, his lips forming words she couldn't hear but understood nonetheless. "I love you." When Emma woke hours later, the first thing she heard was the steady beeping of multiple monitors. Blinking against harsh hospital lights, she found her mother sitting beside her bed. "The babies?" she asked immediately, voice hoarse. Eleanor smiled, tears in her eyes. "They're beautiful, Emma. A boy and a girl, both in the NICU but doing remarkably well for 34 weeks. Relief flooded through her, followed instantly by another fear. "Liam?" Her mother's expression sobered. "He's in cardiac ICU. The episode was severe. They had to resuscitate him once, but he stabilized." Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. "I need to see him and the babies. Please." "You've just had major surgery," Eleanor reminded her gently. "But I've arranged something." She nodded toward the door where a nurse entered, pushing a wheelchair. "Hospital policy says no getting out of bed yet, but we can bend the rules a little." 20 minutes later, Emma was wheeled into the NICU, her heart expanding painfully at the sight of 2 tiny infants in separate incubators, tubes and wires connecting their miniature bodies to life-saving equipment. "They're perfect," she whispered, reaching a hand into the port to touch her son's impossibly small fingers. "Have you told Liam?" "His sister is with him now," the nurse explained. "She's showing him pictures." After precious moments with her newborns, Emma insisted on seeing Liam. His room in the cardiac ICU was dimly lit, medical equipment surrounding his bed, where he lay pale and still, eyes closed. He risked his life to be with you, Isabella said quietly from the corner, rising to greet Emma. The doctor said the stress triggered a potentially fatal arrhythmia. He knew the risk and came anyway. Emma wheeled herself closer to Liam's bedside, taking his hand carefully around the IV lines. I was so afraid, she whispered, for the babies, for you. To her shock, Liam's fingers tightened around hers, his eyes fluttering open. Worth it, he murmured, voice barely audible. To see you, to know you're all safe. You stubborn, reckless man, Emma choked, tears flowing freely. You could have died. A ghost of his familiar smile touched his lips. Not before meeting my children. They're beautiful, she told him, squeezing his hand. Perfect, and they need their father. So you have to get well. I will, he promised, his eyes drifting closed again as exhaustion claimed him. For our family. Our family. The words echoed in Emma's heart as she watched him slip back into sleep, monitors confirming his heart's steady rhythm. In the space of a few terrifying hours, everything had changed. Priorities clarified, fears exposed as the hollow things they were. Independence meant nothing if Liam wasn't there to share it with her. Success meant nothing without him to celebrate beside her, and pride was a cold companion compared to the fierce, sacrificial love this man had shown her. As she reluctantly allowed the nurse to wheel her back to her room, Emma made a silent vow to the man who had risked everything to be by her side, to the father of her children, to the love she'd nearly lost to her own stubborn fears. When he recovered, and he would recover, she would accept nothing less. She would give him the answer his heart deserved, the answer she should have given weeks ago before fear and pride had stolen precious time they could have shared. This time, she would be the one to propose. Chapter 9. New Beginnings. Recovery came in small, precious moments. For Emma, it was the first time she held both twins simultaneously, their tiny bodies nestled against her chest, as nurses showed her how to navigate the tangle of monitoring wires. For Liam, it was waking from surgery with a new defibrillator implanted in his chest and the knowledge that his children were breathing on their own, growing stronger each day. 1 week after the twins' dramatic arrival, Emma sat beside Liam's hospital bed, her wheelchair positioned so she could see his face while holding their daughter near. Liam cradled their son, Noah, with a tenderness that made her heart ache. He has your eyes, Liam murmured, tracing a gentle finger along Noah's cheek. And Ava has your determination, Emma replied with a smile. The nurses say she's the feistiest baby in the NICU, a fighter like her mother. Liam's gaze moved from his son to Emma, his eyes filled with an emotion that stole her breath. Like all of you. They'd been kept in separate hospital rooms for 5 days, connecting only through video calls and photos shared by nurses. This was their first time together as a family, arranged by hospital staff, who bent rules after witnessing their ordeal. The cardiologist says you'll make a full recovery, Emma said, still frightened by how close she'd come to losing him. But you need to take it easy. Liam's smile held irony. Says the woman who checked herself out of bed one day after a C-section to visit the NICU. We're quite a pair, she acknowledged. Neither of us good at following medical advice when family is concerned. Family. The word hung between them, weighted with profound meaning. They had created something sacred, not through legal contracts or business arrangements, but through a love that had deepened and strengthened with every challenge they'd faced together. I was terrified, Emma admitted quietly, her voice breaking as she watched Ava's tiny fingers curl instinctively around her thumb. When they told me you'd collapsed, that your heart had... She couldn't finish, the memory still too raw. I knew the risks, Liam said, his voice low and intense as he shifted Noah to cradle him with one arm, reaching his free hand to caress Emma's cheek. But there was never a choice to make. A life without you and these children wouldn't be worth the safety of staying away. Emma met his eyes, tears threatening. There's always a choice. You chose us over your own safety. As I always will. His voice was soft but certain. You and these children are everything to me, Emma. Everything. Nurses came to take the twins back to the NICU for their feeding schedule, leaving Emma and Liam alone. In the quiet that followed, the words they'd both been avoiding seemed to fill the space between them. We need to talk about what happens next, Liam said finally, when we're all released from the hospital. Emma took a deep breath. I don't want to go back to the brownstone. I don't want to be apart anymore. Relief washed over his features. You come home to the penthouse? Home, she repeated, testing the word. Yes, I want to come home with you. He reached for her hand, entwining their fingers. And us? Where do we stand? Emma met his gaze steadily. I was wrong, Liam. Not about needing time. That was real. But about needing distance. These past weeks without you, she shook her head. I was miserable, pretending it was about independence, when really I was just afraid. Afraid of what? He asked gently. Of losing myself, of loving you so much that your world would swallow mine. She squeezed his hand. But I realized something when they told me about your heart attack. The only thing worse than losing myself would be losing you. Liam's eyes brightened with moisture. Does this mean... It means I'd like to renegotiate our contract, Emma said, a smile playing at her lips despite the tears in her eyes. I'm thinking a lifetime agreement, exclusive rights, no exit clauses. The joy that transformed his face made her heart flip. Are you proposing to me, Emma Caldwell? I believe I am. She leaned forward carefully, mindful of her healing incision. Though I don't have a ring to offer. Liam reached for the drawer of his bedside table with his free hand, wincing slightly at the movement. I might be able to help with that. From the drawer he withdrew the familiar velvet box. I kept it with me. Even in the ambulance I made them bring my jacket because this was in the pocket. Emma's breath caught as he opened the box, revealing the stunning ring he'd offered before. You knew I'd change my mind? I hoped, he corrected, his eyes never leaving hers. I prayed. And I promised myself that if I survived, I'd spend every day making you glad you chose me. I already am, she whispered, extending her trembling left hand. Will you still have me after everything? Instead of answering, Liam slipped the ring onto her finger, then brought her hand to his lips. Ask me again. Emma blinked back tears. Will you marry me, Liam Navarro? Yes, he said simply, the single word carrying the weight of all they'd endured together. 1,000 times, yes! Their kiss was gentle, constrained by medical equipment and healing bodies, yet filled with promise and renewed commitment. When they separated, Liam touched her cheek with reverent fingers. Her beginning was unorthodox, he said with a small smile, but I wouldn't change it. Every step led us here. Emma leaned into his touch. From contract to love. The best negotiation of my life, he agreed, eyes crinkling at the corners. 2 weeks later, when both twins had gained enough weight to be released from the NICU and Liam's cardiologist had cleared him for limited activity at home, they finally left the hospital as a family. The penthouse had been transformed in their absence. The master suite rearranged to accommodate twin bassinets. The nursery modified for easier access during Liam's recovery. Their first night home was a chaos of feeding schedules, diaper changes, and precious moments of quiet wonder as they took turns holding their miraculously perfect children. Near dawn, Emma found Liam in the nursery rocking chair, both twins asleep on his chest while he sang softly in Spanish. Mi corazón, he murmured when he saw her in the doorway. You should be resting. So should you, she reminded him, coming to perch on the arm of the chair. Your heart has never been stronger, he finished, smiling up at her, though these two might test its limits when they're teenagers. Emma laughed softly, careful not to disturb the sleeping infants. We survived a contract pregnancy, premature twins, and cardiac arrest. I think we can handle adolescence. We can handle anything, Liam agreed, his free hand finding hers, fingers automatically seeking the engagement ring. Together. As morning light filtered through the nursery windows, illuminating the celestial mural Liam had commissioned months ago, Emma watched her fiancé. How perfectly that word fit now, holding their children with such tender care. The journey from that first outrageous proposition in a Chicago hotel room to this moment of profound peace had been neither simple nor easy. Yet every step, every challenge, had forged something precious between them. A love built on choice rather than obligation, on partnership rather than possession. What are you thinking? Liam asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Emma smiled, leaning down to kiss him softly. That, sometimes the most beautiful destinations come from the most unexpected beginnings. And our beginning was certainly unexpected, he agreed with a quiet laugh. But our ending was always meant to be this, she whispered, her hand joining his beneath their sleeping children. Their fingers intertwined, like their lives had become separate yet unified, independent yet connected by bonds stronger than any contract could create. As the twins stirred, beginning the day's cycle of needs and care, Emma and Liam exchanged a look of perfect understanding. The challenges ahead, balancing careers with parenthood, navigating Liam's health concerns, planning a wedding while raising newborns, seemed manageable with the foundation they'd built. Not just a business arrangement or a passionate affair, but a partnership forged through crisis into something unbreakable. A family created first on paper, but now written indelibly on their hearts. Chapter 10. Passion's Promise. 6 months after the twins' birth, Emma stood in the nursery watching Noah and Ava sleep peacefully. Her body had changed, her heart had transformed, and the man who'd entered her life with a shocking business proposal had become her entire world. Liam's arms encircled her from behind, his lips finding that sensitive spot on her neck that still made her weak. "They're finally asleep," he whispered, his breath hot against her skin. Both at the same time, she turned in his embrace, her body instantly responding to his nearness. The recovery from his heart surgery had left a scar that she traced nightly with reverent fingers, a reminder of how close she'd come to losing him. "You promised me a surprise tomorrow," she reminded him, pressing herself against him. "And I always keep my promises," he murmured before claiming her mouth in a kiss that started gentle but quickly blazed into something more urgent. His hands slid down her body with possessive heat, remembering every curve, worshipping the changes motherhood had brought. "But I can give you a different kind of surprise right now." Their lovemaking that night was both tender and fierce, the passion between them having only intensified through crisis and joy. When they finally lay tangled and breathless in their sheets, Emma wondered how she'd ever feared losing herself in this man's love, when she'd only ever found herself more completely in his arms. The next evening, Liam brought her back to where everything began. The Chicago hotel where he'd first propositioned her in the midst of a snowstorm. But instead of the penthouse suite, he led her to the rooftop garden, transformed with twinkling lights and flowers. "I brought you back to where it all started," he said, his eyes holding hers with an intensity that still made her heart race. "Where I made the best mistake of my life." Emma smiled, remembering his arrogant certainty when proposing their arrangement. "You were quite insistent about the terms." "I was a fool," he admitted, drawing her against him with urgent hands. "I thought I wanted an heir. Instead, I found the love of my life." He guided her to a small table where a document lay. "Our original contract," he explained, picking up a pen and drawing a bold line through the entire text before signing at the bottom. "No more terms, no more conditions, just us." With trembling fingers, Emma added her signature beside his, feeling something symbolic shift between them. Liam then withdrew a small antique box from his pocket. "This was my grandmother's," he said, revealing a stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds. "Given only when the love is real and certain." He knelt before her, his eyes blazing with emotion. "Marry me, Emma. Not for the twins, not for convenience, just because what we have is worth fighting for." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she pulled him to his feet, claiming his mouth in a kiss that answered before her words could. "Yes," she finally whispered against his lips. "I've been yours since that first ridiculous proposal." That night, in the penthouse suite where they'd first met, now owned by Liam and transformed into a monument to their journey, they made love with a passion that transcended the physical. His hands and mouth reclaimed every inch of her body, as if memorizing her anew, while her fingers traced the rhythm of his healing heart, the beat that had nearly stopped, but now thumped steadily for her and their children. "I once offered you a business deal," Liam whispered against her heated skin, his body moving with hers in perfect synchrony. "What I received was everything I never knew I needed." Their wedding 3 months later was intimate but joyful, held in the same rooftop garden. As they exchanged vows with the twins gurgling happily in their grandmother's arms, Emma realized that true independence wasn't about standing alone. It was about choosing who to stand with. Later, as they danced beneath the stars where their journey had started, Liam pulled her impossibly closer. his hands trailing fire down her spine. Their bodies moved as one, the heat between them palpable even through layers of wedding attire. "Give me a baby, and I'll save your business," Emma whispered against his ear, her lips brushing the sensitive skin there. Who would have thought those words would lead to this, burning, all-consuming love? Liam's eyes darkened with desire as he spun her away from the reception toward a private alcove of the garden. "Our story was written in the stars that night," he murmured, his voice dropping to that husky timbre that still made her knees weak. "But what I feel for you now makes that first attraction seem like a mere spark compared to this inferno." His mouth claimed hers with fierce possession, his tongue seeking, demanding, as he pressed her against the garden wall. Emma melted into him, her body responding instantly to his touch, as it always had, always would. "I need you," she breathed against his lips. "Now, always." "You have me," he promised, his hand sliding possessively over the curves he worshipped nightly. "Body, heart, soul, everything I am belongs to you." They barely made it to the suite he'd prepared, the same one where their first kiss had ignited this unstoppable passion. Clothes fell away as they tumbled onto silk sheets, their bodies coming together with the perfect synchrony that had only deepened with time and intimacy. "Mine," he growled against her throat, claiming her with reverent passion, his movements both tender and fierce. "My wife, my heart, my everything." As pleasure spiraled them both toward ecstasy, Emma looked into the eyes of the man who had transformed her life and found her own soul reflected back. This was no business arrangement, no convenient partnership. This was a connection so profound it transcended all boundaries, all contracts, all limitations. "I love you, Liam Navarro," she whispered, as they lay entwined afterward, her body still trembling with aftershocks. "Beyond reason, beyond fear, beyond anything I ever thought possible." His fingers traced the curve of her cheek with exquisite tenderness, his eyes burning with promise. "And I will spend every day of our lives showing you just how completely I'm yours, Emma. Every touch, every kiss, every breath, a testament to what we found together." As moonlight bathed their intertwined bodies, Emma surrendered to the beautiful truth that had been waiting for her since that snowy Chicago night. Sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most perfect destinies. And their destiny was a passion that would never fade, a love that would only burn hotter, deeper, and more consuming with each passing year, a fire neither time nor circumstance could ever extinguish.